Want to speak real English from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at EnglishClass101.com.
Let's get started even though there's a dude on my balcony. Hi everybody, welcome back to Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. First question this week comes from Ayman. Hi again, Ayman. Ayman says, what is the use of definite article the? We use the with a singular noun to refer to a specific instance of that noun. So when you're telling a story, we'll often introduce the first instance of a noun with and then after that we'll use the to refer to the specific instance of that thing. So for example, a simple story. I was walking down the street and I saw a dog. The dog was really cute. I pet the dog. So in that situation, when I introduce a dog in the story, the first time I talk about the dog in the story, I use to introduce it. Then after that, I use the to refer to that specific dog that I introduced earlier in the story. Every other time that I want to talk about that same dog, I use the before it. So use the word the when you need to refer to a specific noun or when you have to refer to a specific group. So for example, the teachers in the school district went on strike. So specifically, we're talking about teachers in a specific school district. The teachers went on strike. The mothers at the PTA meeting organized a bake sale. It's a specific group that is defined by something else. So in this case, the mothers at the PTA meeting. Only the mothers that were at that meeting, not the mothers from a different group, for example. So we use the to talk about a specific instance of something. Next question comes from Johnny. Hi Johnny, you wrote a very long message. Thank you very much for watching. There's a slang expression that I've heard several times and don't understand well. I know, right? Using I know, right is like an invitation then for the other person to agree again, really. I know, right? So think of I know, right as like an even stronger, like even more emphasis on the agreement and an invitation for the other person to agree again. I know, right? It's like, yes, and you agree too, don't you? Next question comes from Zafar Ahmad. Zafar Ahmad, hi. Zafar asks about two sentences. Okay, 1, have you ever cried in a film? 2, have you ever cried at a film? My question is about the preposition in or at. Which sentence is correct? And explain the reason. Of course, I will explain the reason. Let's take a look at the first one. Have you ever cried in a film? This is actually a point where the differences between British English and American English might come into play a little bit. Have you ever cried in a film? Could have a few different meanings depending on the situation. If, for example, you are speaking to an actor and you say, have you ever cried in a film? Meaning, when you were in a film, when you were acting in a film, did you cry at any point in time? So, have you ever cried in a film? It could also mean, have you gone to watch a movie in a movie theater and cried at the movie theater or in the movie theater? Your second sentence, have you ever cried at a film? So using at shows like the direction of an emotion. Like we use it with other emotions as well. Like my mom is mad at me or my dad is angry at me. So it's showing the direction of emotion. So in this case, have you ever cried at a film? Meaning, did a film cause you to cry? Have you ever cried because of a film? In my case though, if I wanted to ask my friend if a movie had ever caused them to cry, I would say, have you ever cried at a movie? Next question. Okay. Next question comes from Igor. Hi Igor. Why are verbs like bury, hurry, study, tidy, and try in the irregular verbs list? Their past simple and past participle forms have ed endings like other regular verbs. The course books used have listed these verbs in the irregular verb list. All right. Tough question because I did not create the textbooks and I don't know the logic that was used for the textbooks. But if I had to guess, Why those verbs are included as irregular verbs? I would imagine it's because these verbs all end in Y. And yes, although the verbs do end in ed, there is an irregular change that happens with verbs that end in Y. So that's to drop the Y and add IED instead of just an ED. So we maintain that E sound like tidy, berry. However, the spelling of the word changes. Next question is from Poria. Poria asks, what's the difference between these words? Interior and internal, exterior and external. All right, well, there are grammatical differences. Interior and exterior are nouns. Internal and external are adjectives. We use interior and exterior to talk about the inside and the outside of something. But internal and external are used, those are adjectives. We use them to talk about the qualities of something. Next question from Stanislav. Hi, Stanislav. Stanislav asks, how do you politely address unfamiliar women and men? Lady, Miss, Mrs., Mr., and Sir. Ah, nice question. All right, if you're at a formal situation, it's better to use Mr. with men. Sir tends to be used more in like a service relationship. So the same thing with ma'am for women. Mrs. is used for married women. If I don't know if someone is married or not, a woman is married or not, I'll use miss. Next question. Next question is from Leon. Hi, Leon. What are the differences between test, exam, quiz, and questionnaire, and when should I use each of them? Nice question. All right, let's start with test and exam. We use these two words quite similarly when we're talking about tests of knowledge or like examinations at school. We can use either of those, like I have a test this week or I have an exam this week. I think in American English, test is probably used more commonly than exam or the long form examination. However, when we want to check the status of our bodies, we'll often use the word exam. So for example, a physical exam, that's an expression we use to mean like a full check of the body, which is commonly done maybe once a year or so. So an exam, like a dental exam or an eye exam, is a check of the condition of your body as well. A quiz is essentially a mini test. A questionnaire, however, is quite different from the three that we've talked about thus far. A questionnaire is something that's given usually to customers. That is for feedback. We use questionnaires for feedback. So those are all the questions that I want to answer this week. Thank you so much for sending your questions. Remember, if you have not sent a question yet, or if you just want to send more questions, you can send them to me at englishclass101.com/ask-Alicia. If you liked the video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and check us out at englishclass101.com for some other good resources. Thanks very much for watching this episode of Ask Alicia, and I will see you again next week. Bye-bye! To englishclass101.com's English in 3 minutes. The fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn English. Hi, how's it going? I'm Alicia. Nice to meet you. In this series, we're going to learn some easy ways to ask and answer common questions in English. It's really useful, and it only takes 3 minutes. In this lesson, you're going to learn new, more common ways to ask and answer the question, "How are you?" in English. You've probably learned, "How are you?" and "I'm fine" in textbooks before, but in the United States, people will usually ask this question and answer it in a different way. First, let's review. If someone says, "How are you?" you can say, "I'm fine." I'm fine. Here are some other ways to answer. Pretty good. This means about the same thing as "I'm fine." Pretty good. We also have not bad. You can use this if you are feeling just okay or so-so. Not bad. Let's look at our question again. How are you? This is the most well-known way of asking how someone is. You could use it when you want to be polite. But now, let's look at some different ways to ask how someone is. These ways are more casual and much more common. First, hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going?
You can answer this in many ways. If you're feeling good, you can say good, good, pretty good, pretty good, not bad, not bad. Once more, good, pretty good, not bad. Here's a tip. Even though these answers mean the same thing as I'm fine, you can't answer how's it going with I'm fine. It will sound a bit strange. If you're not feeling good, you can say not so good, not so good, not great, not great, or not so well, not so well. Be careful. If you say one of these, the other person will usually ask, why? What's wrong? To be polite. Then you will have to explain. Another casual but very common version of how are you is what's up? What's up? To reply, use a cheerful voice as you say not much, or nothing much, nothing much. This means you're free and able to chat. Since what's up is just another way of saying hello, you can also reply with hey or hi. Now it's time for Alicia's advice. A lot of the time, when we ask questions that mean, how are you, in English, we're not actually asking about the other person's health. We're only asking to be polite. You should think of these questions as another way of saying hello, a way for the conversation to get started, instead of actual, literal questions. In fact, when someone asks you, what's up, you don't even have to answer. Just say, what's up, in reply. Do you know the difference between what do you do and what are you doing? It's a little tricky, but we'll explain it simply in the next English in 3 minutes lesson. See you next time.
10 lines you need for introducing yourself. So let's go. Hello, it's nice to meet you. Hello, it's nice to meet you. You can only use this the first time that you meet someone. If you say this to somebody after you have met them already, you're going to seem either A, like you've completely forgotten meeting them, or B, like you are a very strange person for saying it's nice to meet you again. So when you use this the first time, you can shake hands with someone and say, hello, it's nice to meet you. My name is. The next phrase is, my name is blah, blah, blah. In my case, my name is Alicia. You can use this again when you're introducing yourself, or if you need to reintroduce yourself, you can use this pattern. When you meet somebody at a party, for example, you can say, my name is blah, blah, blah. My name is Barbara. My name is Stevens. You can shorten this. You can say, my name's blah, blah, blah. I'm from. After you've said your name, after you've shaken hands, you can say, I'm from the US, I'm from Japan, I'm from Turkey, I'm from your mom's house, I'm from I'm from a cave in Southern Europe, I'm from your country, or I'm from your city. I'm from the future. Wow. Wow. I have to go. I live in blah, blah, blah. You can use your city. You can use your country, you can use, even maybe if you live near a certain station, you can use the name of the station where you live. So for example, I live in America is fine. I live in Los Angeles is fine. I live in New York is fine. So your neighborhood is fine. If someone says, where do you live? And you say, I live in an apartment. It's like, what? So please use the region or the location where you live, not the type of place where you live. If you hear the question, what do you do? It's asking about your job. In English, people don't say, what is your job? That's not the question that we ask. Instead, the question is, what do you do? And the correct response to that is, I'm a, or I'm an, blah, 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 followed by your job title. So if someone says, what do you do? You can say, I'm a teacher. What do you do? I'm an engineer. What do you do? I'm a donut shop tester. I'm years old. When someone asks, how old are you? You can say, I'm blah, 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 years old. Don't forget the S at the end of this. If you like, you can shorten this phrase to just I'm plus your age. So I'm 65. I'm 13. Whatever. I'm this many. Sometimes children will say that. How old are you? They'll say, I'm this many. It's kind of cute. First time you meet someone, you might not ask, how old are you? If it's in a friendly case, like in a party after you've spoken to the person a little bit, it's okay. But just try to be sensitive to the context. Try to be sensitive to the people around you. And if you sense that maybe there's a very large age gap between you, it might be better just not to ask the question at all.
I enjoy.
Many of my students say, what is your hobby? But that's not something that native speakers will say. No native speakers say, what is your hobby? Instead, we ask, what do you like to do? Or what do you do in your free time? This is a much more natural question than what's your hobby? The answer to this then is I enjoy or I like plus a noun phrase. So for example, what do you like to do? I like listening to music, or I enjoy listening to music. What do you do in your free time? I like watching movies. What do you do in your free time? I like baking cakes. What do you do in your free time? I enjoy tap dancing. What do you do in your free time? I enjoy making new friends. Aw.
One of my hobbies is.
One of my hobbies is blah, blah, blah. With this one, it's probably better to use a short, easy to understand hobby. If you're explaining a hobby, people are going to expect that it's going to be something that they know about, like photography or cooking or dancing or swimming or whatever. So try to pick something that will allow you to continue the conversation. That's why movies or cooking or books or, sports are a good thing to share. One of my hobbies is snowboarding.
I've been learning English for.
If you are learning English, if you're studying English, you can use this expression. If someone asks you, how long have you been studying English? You can say, I've been studying English for amount of time. Or I've been learning English, or I've been practicing English, or I've been speaking English for a certain amount of time. I've been studying English since elementary school is also okay to use. I've been studying English since I was in college. Just be careful. For is used for a length of time, and since is used for a specific point in time at which you started something. So you can try and mix it up and use a few different expressions there. So I've been learning English for a long time. I'm still learning English. You should do that too. Okay.
I'm learning English at EnglishClass101.com.
This probably could be used in response to where did you learn English, or where are you studying English, or how are you studying English? You can respond with, I'm learning English at EnglishClass101.com, or I'm learning English at my school. I'm learning English at my private teacher's house, for example. So a little bit of grammar in this sentence. Why do we use the progressive tense, I'm learning English? If you say I'm learning, it sounds like you're still continuing your studies. If you say I learned English at EnglishClass101.com, it sounds like you're finished. Like you're finished studying, there's nothing else for you to study, so you're done. So it's much, much more natural to actually use the progressive I'm learning or I'm studying when you're talking about your studies, when you're talking about your hobbies, than it is to say I learned or I studied. Hi everybody, welcome back to Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. First question comes from Vanessa Rodriguez. Hi Vanessa. Vanessa says, hi Alicia, I'd like to know the difference between kind of, sort of, and somewhat. Greetings from Brazil. Let's begin with kind of and sort of. So kind of and sort of can be used before verbs and adjectives to mean a little. And when we're speaking quickly, we say kinda and sorta. You'll also see this spelling used in casual messages like text messages or maybe less formal emails. So some examples. I kind of want to eat Korean for lunch. This dessert is kind of sweet, don't you think? I sort of like that new movie. Our neighbors are being sort of noisy tonight. We also use kind of and sort of as softeners, especially for bad news. Some examples. I sort of forgot to send you the details. I kind of broke your computer. Also, keep in mind that kind of and sort of can come before a noun, but when they're used in this way, kind of and sort of mean type. They don't mean a little. For example, what kind of ice cream do you like? What sort of car are you thinking of buying? So let's move on to somewhat. Somewhat means a little or slightly also, but it sounds more formal than kind of or sort of. We can use somewhat before adjectives. We can also use somewhat with verbs, but you'll find somewhat used after the verb, so it's an adverb there. Some examples. Our answer depends somewhat on today's meeting. The lesson content may vary somewhat in accordance with students' questions. Like I said, we can use it before adjectives, but it feels more formal than kind of or sort of. I'm somewhat surprised you replied to my email. This decision seems somewhat odd. Okay, so I hope that helps answer your question. Thanks very much for sending it along. Let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from David Hosono. Hi, David. David says, Hi, Alicia. I am Japanese and not religious. Is it acceptable for me to use religious words like, oh my God, or bless you? If not acceptable, is there an alternate way of saying it? This is kind of a tough question because it depends on your listener. So let's start with the phrase bless you here. I've never heard of a situation where someone has gotten in trouble for saying bless you. If you're not familiar with this phrase, bless you is a common expression English speakers use after someone sneezes. It has kind of an interesting history. I've read two things actually about where this expression comes from. One, people used to believe that when you sneeze, that part of your soul or part of your spirit leaves your body, so they said bless you. The other thing is that I heard that the phrase originated around the time of the Black Plague, and so sneezing was like the first sign that someone might die. So people said bless you when they heard a sneeze. Interesting. I don't know which is true, but it's an interesting expression for sure. But regardless, when people say bless you, it typically isn't a problem. If you're not sure or if you're not feeling comfortable, just say nothing. That's totally natural as well. Some other people like to use the German word Gesundheit. I don't know if my pronunciation is correct there, but it means roughly health to my understanding. So some people like to use that. I personally don't. You might hear it from time to time. But if you're ever worried, my recommendation would be to say nothing. I personally don't use the expression bless you. Regarding the question about oh my God, this one is perhaps more sensitive depending on the person you're talking to. There are some people, especially people who have strong religious beliefs, who believe that using the word God outside of a religious situation is bad. It's not a good thing to do. So in those cases, those people might feel offended if you use the word God in the expression, oh my God. For many people, it's not a problem. If you're worried, if you're not sure, if you're not comfortable, you can use the expression, oh my gosh. This is a very common and very acceptable and natural substitute. So, oh my gosh in place. If you listen to the people you're around and you hear them saying, oh my God, you can probably safely use oh my God as well. But if you're worried, you can just say, oh my gosh. That's fine too. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks very much for this question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Kanat. Hi, Kanat. Kanat says, hi, Alicia. Could you please explain the difference between what do I have to do and what am I supposed to do? Yeah, the difference between have to and supposed to is subtle. So let's start with have to. When we use the expression have to, we're talking about like an obligation or a responsibility. When we use supposed to, it's like there's some kind of outside expectation, like a societal expectation or like a relationship expectation, something you are supposed to do, like a specific way you are supposed to behave. So regarding your question then, let's imagine two people are having an argument. If someone says, what do I have to do? It's like they're asking about their obligations. They're asking about their responsibilities. What must they do? If someone asks the question, what am I supposed to do? It's often like they're asking for the other person's expectations of them. So maybe it's not even necessarily like a responsibility, but you're asking for someone else's expectations with that question. So the situations where you would hear these two are maybe a little bit different. Like, what do I have to do? Would be used more when we're looking to achieve a goal. Like, what do I have to do to get a good score on this test? Or what do I have to do to get this job? If you're asking the question, what am I supposed to do? It's often in a situation that's like trouble. So maybe you're in trouble with like the person you're in a relationship with, or maybe you're in like trouble with like a landlord, for example. Like, what am I supposed to do? If I don't have this house, I'll be in trouble. So it's like, what are your expectations of me versus what are the things I must do? So it's a very subtle difference. Supposed to is kind of more like societies and relationships and those kinds of like people related like connections, and have to can feel more like obligations, responsibilities. So I would suggest to just pay attention when you see these two words used in text, and you can kind of get a feel for the times when we would use these. I hope that this helps answer your question. Thanks very much for sending it along. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Ty. Hi, Ty. Ty says, hello, Alicia. Can you tell me about the word record and the way to read it when it's a verb and when it's a noun? Yeah, so as a verb, the word is pronounced record, record. So for example, we're recording a video, or let's record a song next year. When used as a noun, to talk about like the disc that you can use to play music, or to talk about like a written note where you keep a lot of information, the pronunciation is record, record. So he bought a lot of records last week. Or do you keep a record of your tasks? So as a verb, record. As a noun, record. I hope that this helps you. Thanks very much for the question. Let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Victoria. Hi, Victoria. Victoria says, I would be grateful if you could explain the difference between want to and wanted to. Also, when can we use wanted to? Okay, the short answer here is that want to is present tense and wanted to is past tense. Examples. I want to eat lunch. You want to get a coffee? He wanted to go jogging. She wanted to cook dinner. So something that might confuse people here is when we're trying to be soft and polite, we might use wanted in past tense to make like a soft request or to ask for information in a soft way. So examples, I wanted to know where the restroom was. I wanted to ask you about the new software. I wanted to talk to you about the presentation. So yes, we're using the past tense here, like I wanted to talk to you about the presentation. It just makes the question sound softer using past tense in that way. So we don't do this for all verbs. We do this for like questioning verbs, like I was wondering is another good example, or I was hoping. So we're trying to like make an inquiry. You might hear this past tense structure used. So we use this in situations where there's a little bit of distance between us and the listener. Maybe with like a work colleague we're not so close to, or maybe with like staff at a department store. So we use it typically with strangers, but we're trying to be a little bit more polite. Of course, you don't have to do this. Some people are very direct and they use present tense. They say, I want to know where the restroom is, or I want to talk to you about the presentation. I personally prefer to be a little softer and a little more polite, so I also tend to use the past tense form. So you can choose which you prefer, but if you hear past tense in situations like these, it's to make a softer question. I hope that this helps you. Thanks very much for the question.
Want to speak real English from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at EnglishClass101.com.
Imagine you're on a plane. There's someone next to you. What do you say? Hi, Alicia here. Introducing yourself in English is easy. In this lesson, you're going to learn how with Gustavo and Henry, who meet on a plane. Gustavo's moving to New York. His family is going to join him later in the month. Henry is in the seat when Gustavo gets on the plane. Let's watch.
Excuse me.
Sorry about that.
Hi, how do you do? I'm Gustavo.
Nice to meet you, Gustavo. I'm Henry Edens.
I'm sorry. Can you say that again, please? A bit slowly?
Henry Edens.
Henry Edens.
That's it, but please call me Hank.
Hank, nice to meet you.
Now with subtitles.
Excuse me.
Sorry about that.
Hi, how do you do? I'm Gustavo.
Nice to meet you, Gustavo. I'm Henry Edens.
I'm sorry. Can you say that again, please? A bit slowly?
Henry Edens.
Henry Edens.
That's it. But please, call me Hank.
Hank, nice to meet you.
Here are the key words from the scene.
Hi,
Hi. Hi. Hi.
but,
But. But. But.
excuse me,
Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me.
two,
Two. Two. Two.
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
How do you do?
How do you do? How do you do? How do you do? Here are the key phrases from the scene. How did Henry apologize when he realized he was in Gustavo's way?
Sorry about that.
Sorry about that.
In general, this expression, when used to respond to excuse me, shows a friendly willingness to help the other person.
In this case, Henry wanted to show he was happy to move out of Gustavo's way.
You can also use it to apologize for a small mistake, like bumping into someone on the street or blocking someone's way in the aisle of a supermarket.
Now you try. Say Henry's line after Gustavo speaks.
Excuse me.
Sorry about that.
Later, Gustavo also used the word sorry to apologize when he didn't understand Henry's name. Which phrase did he use?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
This is a very common phrase in English for many situations, but here, Gustavo uses it to indicate he didn't understand something.
Now you try. Say the line after Henry speaks.
I'm Henry Edens.
I'm sorry.
Because Gustavo did not understand something, he asked Henry to repeat what he said. To do this, what polite question did he use?
Can you say that again, please?
Can you say that again, please?
In response, English speakers will usually repeat what they have said and will use the same words.
Now you try. Ask the question after Gustavo says, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Can you say that again, please?
Gustavo also wanted Henry to speak more slowly. To do this, what does he ask?
A bit slowly?
A bit slowly.
This is not a complete sentence, but has a clear meaning when used after, "Can you say that again, please?" In response, English speakers will slow their speech down.
Now you try. Say the phrase after Gustavo says, Can you say that again, please?
Can you say that again, please? A bit slowly?
After Gustavo said Henry's name, Henry confirmed he said it correctly. How did he do that?
That's it.
That's it.
This is like saying, "That's correct." But since the situation was friendly, "That's it" sounded more natural.
Now you try. Say the phrase after Gustavo says Henry's name correctly.
Henry Edens.
That's it.
Now the lesson focus. Here's how to introduce yourself. Ready? Do you remember how Gustavo introduced himself?
Hi, how do you do? I'm Gustavo.
When Gustavo introduced himself, he started with hi and then used a set phrase.
How do you do?
How do you do?
This is a polite expression people often use with an introduction. It sounds like a question, but it has no particular meaning, and there's no expectation the other person will try to answer it.
Next, he says,
I'm Gustavo.
the first part of this sentence is a contraction of two words, I and am. The am here functions like an equal sign in math.
I'm.
I'm
The next word in the sentence is a name.
Gustavo.
Together it's.
I'm Gustavo.
The structure of the pattern is
Hi, how do you do? I'm
plus.
your name.
Now you try. Imagine your name is John. Say, hi, how do you do? I'm John.
Hi, how do you do? I'm John.
Now imagine your name is Eichel. Say, hi, how do you do? I'm Eichel. Hi, how do you do? I'm Eichel.
Now use your name.
Okay, there are two additional things you need to know. First, there's a shortcut for giving your name.
Just drop the I'm from the final sentence of the self-introduction.
For example, if Gustavo just said,
Hi, how do you do? Gustavo.
Henry would have understood it was his name.
This would be especially clear if Gustavo extended his hand for a handshake while saying this.
In very casual situations, you can even drop the hi and the how do you do. All that is left would be your name.
The second thing you need to know is you can use I'm with just the first name or your first name and the last name together.
I'm Henry Eddins.
Eddins is Henry's family name.
Using both your first name and your last name is a little more formal.
It also gives you less privacy. For example, if people know both your first and last name, they can find you on the internet more easily.
So it may be more common for strangers to say just their first name than people meeting in a more friendly environment.
Next, you'll learn how to tell people to call you by a nickname, just like Henry did in the scene.
But please call me Hank.
But please, call me Hank.
The first word in the sentence is.
But
This word is not necessary, but it makes the transition to the rest of the sentence smoother.
Henry uses this to introduce a new piece of information.
And this information changes something about what he said before, but makes this clear.
The next word introduces a polite request.
Please.
Please.
Next is a request to use a certain name.
Call.
Call.
After this is the word
Me.
me.
Last is a common nickname for men named Henry.
Hank.
Hank.
Please call me Hank.
The sentence structure is
Please, call me.
plus.
Your nickname.
Now you try. Imagine your nickname is Matt. Say, please call me Matt.
Please, call me Matt.
Now imagine your nickname is Lulu. Say, please call me Lulu.
Please, call me Lulu.
Now use your own nickname. Say, please call me, and then use your nickname.
Finally, when you meet someone for the first time, it's polite to say a set phrase at the end.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Usually, both people will say this or something similar to it.
Now you try.
Nice to meet you.
Now it's time to practice your new ability. Let's practice.
This is your chance to introduce yourself. Try to remember what you learned and practice by speaking aloud.
It's your first day in the US, and you're meeting your new neighbor. Ready? Here we go.
What's the first thing you say to someone you've just met? Hi, how do you do?
How do you tell someone your name?
I'm name.
I'm Henry Edens.
How do you tell someone your nickname? Please call me your nickname.
Please call me Hank.
What's the last thing you say to someone you've just met?
Nice to meet you.
Great job. You've just introduced yourself. You'll follow this same pattern many times, so be sure to practice it.
Well done. Now, watch the scene one more time. After that, go and practice with all your American friends, or with us in the comments. Bye!
Excuse me.
Sorry about that.
Hi, how do you do? I'm Gustavo.
Nice to meet you, Gustavo. I'm Henry Edens.
I'm sorry. Can you say that again, please? A bit slowly?
Henry Edens.
Henry Edens.
That's it. But please call me Hank.
Hank, nice to meet you.
Welcome to EnglishClass101.com's English in 3 minutes, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn English. Hey everyone, I'm Alicia. In this series, we're going to learn some easy ways to ask and answer common questions in English. It's really useful and it only takes 3 minutes. In this lesson, you're going to learn how to ask what someone's job is in natural English. Of course, you can just say, "What is your job?" This is correct English, but it sounds too direct and awkward. Native English speakers almost never say this in a social situation. Instead, they use a different question. But before we master that, we need to compare it to a very similar question. What are you doing? I'm presenting a video about English. What do you do? I'm an English teacher. Do you see the difference? These two questions, what are you doing and what do you do, sound similar but mean different things. The first one is asking what you are doing right now, this minute. You answer it using an ing verb. What are you doing? I'm reading. I'm watching TV. While the second is actually a shortened version of what do you do for a living? This is how we ask, what is your job in natural English? Let's practice this question. What do you do? What do you do? When native speakers of English ask this question, it can come out very fast and sound more like, what do you do? In order to tell it apart from, what are you doing? Just listen for the ing sound on the end of the question. If it's not there, then you're being asked what your job is. So how would you answer this question? Just think of it as if the other person is asking you, what is your job? You could answer with, I am, plus your job. I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher. Or, I'm an engineer. If you want to learn more job names, go to EnglishClass101.com and check out the core word lists. These cover job vocabulary and more, and include a picture and audio to help you perfect your pronunciation. You can also mention the place that you work at, starting with, I work at. I work at a hospital. I work at a hospital. I work at a law firm. I work at a law firm. If you work for a big company that is well known, you can say, I work for, and then the name. I work for Microsoft. I work for Microsoft. I work for the New York Times. I work for the New York Times. Now it's time for Alicia's advice. When you ask the question, "What do you do?" and the other person tells you their job, it's polite to make some kind of positive comment about his or her job. For example, "How interesting," or "That must be exciting," or even, "Oh, really?" Remember to sound sincere. Do you know how native English speakers ask each other what their hobbies are? Hint, we don't use the word hobbies. Find out next time in the third English in 3 minutes lesson. See you next time. Welcome to EnglishClass101.com's English in 3 minutes, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn English. Hey everyone, I'm Alicia. This series will teach you some easy ways to ask and answer common questions in English. It's really useful and it only takes 3 minutes. In this lesson, you're going to learn some new ways to ask someone, "What's your name?" including one that you can use when you have forgotten someone's name. Now, "What is your name?" was probably one of the first questions you learned when you started studying English. I have to tell you, though, that most native speakers of English would never say this. In English, just like in other languages, it is often more polite to be a little indirect. Of course, the easiest way to avoid asking the question directly is to not ask at all. Just introduce yourself, and most people will respond by doing the same. When introducing yourself, simple is nearly always best. Just say, "Hi, I'm Alicia." To show that you want to know the other person's name, just add "and you" at the end. "Hi, I'm Alicia. And you?" "Hi, I'm Alicia. And you?" Just like before, take out my name, Alicia, and put your name in its place. After you say this, the other person will tell you his or her name. Okay, now let's talk about an embarrassing situation that happens to everybody. You have already met this person once before, but you have forgotten their name. The most polite thing to do in this situation is to apologize and ask again. There's a simple way to do this that's also polite. "I'm sorry, what was your name again?" "I'm sorry, what was your name again?" This sentence is very similar to "What's your name?" but it has 3 important differences. First, we say, "I'm sorry." A small apology can go a long way. After that, we say, "What was your name?" This is just like, "What is your name?" But instead of is, we use the past tense was. This is really important as it tells the other person that you remember meeting them. You haven't forgotten him or her. You have just forgotten the name. This little word makes all the difference. "I'm sorry, what was your name?" Finally, we add again to the end. This is another hint that tells the other person that you remember learning his or her name before, but you just can't recall it right now. "I'm sorry, what was your name again?" This phrase is appropriate for both formal and informal situations. Now it's time for Alicia's advice. In the United States, it's normal to address people by name in conversation more than once. In both formal and informal situations, it's a way to show respect or interest in the other person and can help you make friends. It is also a great way to practice someone's name so you don't forget it. If you are talking to someone named Anne, for example, instead of just, "What do you do for fun?" you could say, "Anne, what do you do for fun?" You can also put the name at the end of the sentence. "What do you do for fun, Anne?" You don't want to say the person's name too often or it will sound a little strange. But if you practice someone's name like this, you won't forget it. And people love to hear their own name. In this lesson, we learned what to say when we forget someone's name. In the next lesson, you'll learn what to say when you want to get in touch with someone, whether by telephone, email, or even newer ways to communicate. What's your favorite? Let us know in the comments and join us next time for the 6th English in 3 minutes lesson. See you next time.
Want to speak real English from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at EnglishClass101.com.
Welcome to EnglishClass101.com's English in 3 minutes, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn English. Hey everyone, I'm Alicia. This series explains some easy ways to ask and answer common questions in English. It's really useful and it only takes 3 minutes. In this lesson, you're going to learn some different ways people will ask you, "Where are you from?" First, though, "Where are you from?" can mean many things. It can mean, "What city are you from?" or "What state are you from?" In fact, Americans ask this question to each other all the time to learn what part of America the other person comes from. Of course, though, it can also mean, "What country are you from?" If you want to answer this question, there are 2 ways to do it. You can say, "I'm" plus your nationality, as in, "I'm Japanese," or "I'm Brazilian." Or you can say, "I'm from" plus the country you are from, as in, "I'm from Italy," or "I'm from Thailand." If you're from a really famous city or place, you can say that too. For example, "I'm from Beijing," or "I'm from New Delhi." Many times, though, Americans won't ask, "What country are you from?" or even, "Where are you from?" In many casual situations, they will say it in a simpler way. "Where are you from?" This is just like, "Where are you from?" but they take out the "are." Where are you from? You can use this too in casual situations. Of course, in the United States, as in other parts of the world, people may be a little more indirect because they want to be polite. To do this, they might ask you if you are from the place where they meet you. For example, if you meet someone in New York, they might ask, "Are you from New York?" Or if you are in San Diego, they might ask, "Are you from San Diego?" Many parts of the United States are very multicultural, so asking the question this way avoids what could be an embarrassing mistake. You can answer this the same way you answer, "Where are you from?" Just add a simple "no" in front. For example, you can say "no" plus "I'm" plus nationality. "No, I'm French." Or "no" plus "I'm from" plus country. "No, I'm from Russia." Now it's time for Alicia's advice. Since the United States is very large, people you meet may take great pride in the place or region they come from. If you ask someone about where they're from, they may respond by saying something like West Coast, or the East Coast, or California, or the South, or the Midwest. If they answer in this way, it usually means they are interested in talking more about their region and how it differs from others. In this lesson, you're going to learn how to ask what someone's hobbies are without using the word hobbies. You've probably seen the question, "Do you have any hobbies?" or "What are your hobbies?" in an English textbook before. However, native English speakers almost never use the word hobbies when asking about them. A much more natural way to ask the same question is, "What do you do for fun?" Let's practice this question. What do you do for fun? What do you do for fun? You can also ask, what do you do in your free time? What do you do in your free time? So, how would you answer this question? Let's look at how native speakers would do it. The easiest way is to say, I like to, or just, I like, followed by what you like to do. For example, if you like watching movies, you could say, I like to watch movies, or I like watching movies. I like to watch movies, or I like watching movies. And if you like golf, you could say, I like to play golf, or I like playing golf. I like to play golf, or I like playing golf. You can emphasize how much you like your hobby by adding a word like really in front of like. For example, I really like watching movies. On the other hand, if you want to play down how much you like something, you can say kind of. For example, I kind of like playing tennis. Now it's time for Alicia's advice. If you don't have any special hobbies or don't want to be specific, a good way to reply is, I like hanging out with my friends and stuff like that. I like hanging out with my friends and stuff like that. Just use I like and add hanging out with my friends and then add and stuff like that.
10 different phrases that you can use to respond to the question, how are you? So let's go. I'm great. The first phrase is, I'm great. If someone says, how are you? You can say, I'm great. Try to say, I'm great with a kind of an upbeat voice. So something like, how are you? I'm great. I'm feeling bad. I'm feeling bad. If you say, I'm feeling bad, the other person is probably, if they're a friend of yours or a coworker, going to ask you, why? What happened? So if you want to use, I'm feeling bad, make sure you have an explanation ready. Anyway, somebody says, how are you? And you go, I'm feeling bad. Maybe I went out for drinks last night with my coworkers. Oops. I'm okay. I'm okay. I feel like this is one of those intonation practice ones. I'm okay with that, I'm okay. It's like sort of upward intonation. You're like, cool. But if someone says, how are you? And you're like, I'm okay. They're like, oh no, what happened? So you can use your intonation with I'm okay to make it a good thing or a not so good thing. But either way, it's not like a very super serious response. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I imagine this would be in a more formal situation. Like if my friend said to me, how are you? And I was like, thank you for asking. They'd be like, what? I would say, I'm fine, or I'm doing well, I'm doing great, plus thank you for asking. So I have to say, how are you? Oh, I'm doing very well, thank you. Oh, that's how I would use it. And you? The next one is and you. Like the least natural response to how are you is I'm fine, thank you, and you. Like just just take it out of your head. Nobody says that. I always say, how about you? That's a much more natural thing. How are you? How are you? How are you can be a response, again, after you have given your answer to the question. How are you? I'm great. How are you? How are you? I'm good. How are you? I'm great. How are you? I'm okay. How are you? How have you been recently? How have you been recently? This is only useful if you haven't seen the other person for a while. I'm not bad. I'm not bad. I'm not bad. How are you? I'm not bad. No, I'm not bad. Things could be worse. I would probably do this. I'm sleepy. The next expression is I'm sleepy. Hey, it's like so specific. If someone said, how are you? I would probably say, I'm okay, but I'm a little sleepy. I don't know that I would just say I'm sleepy, unless it's a really good friend of mine. It's a person close to you. You can say, I'm so tired. I would say I'm super tired or I'm really tired. And I feel like that's a little bit more natural than just I'm sleepy. I'm good. One that I use a lot, if someone says, how are you? I say, I'm good. That's just probably my go-to response. Yeah, I'm good, I'm good. Maybe I'll repeat it while smiling. I'm good, I'm good. Yeah, thanks for asking. Great. How are you? Hi, everybody, and welcome back to English Topics. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined today by...
Hi, I'm Davey.
Thanks for joining us again, Davey. So today our topic for discussion is going to be things that you should not say when meeting someone for the first time. So please be careful not to say these things or to ask these questions the first time you meet someone. This could be very important. It could influence your relationship with that person for a long time. So let's begin. I'll start this one. Okay, here I go.
What do you have?
First one. I'm not going to start with that one. I'm going to start with, yes, the classic question. How old are you?
Ooh,
yeah,
dangerous.
Don't ask this question. It doesn't matter. Like, maybe I could see if you're like a college age person and you're at a college age people party and everybody is pretty much the same age and you just maybe want to confirm exactly how close in age you are. I could see that. But in the adult world, how old are you is like a classic question not to ask, because some people might be very sensitive about their age, whether they feel they're older or younger than the person they're speaking to. So don't ask this question. It's a good idea, just a better idea not to ask this question, even if you're curious. If you're curious about how old someone is, what do you do?
Alicia, when did you graduate high school? So, see what I did there?
I do see what you did there. So you ask an indirect question about their age so that you can kind of guess maybe about this age. So he doesn't ask me how old I am, but he asks when I completed a specific point in my life that usually happens around age 18 or so. Very tricky. So yeah, avoid this question, but an indirect one like that could be good, could be useful. Okay, nice one. What's your first tip?
My first tip is similar. I feel like you might have the better tips this time because you're very specific today. My first tip is avoid overly personal questions or comments as well. So for example, asking about age would be an example of that. But I think there are very many different overly personal questions that you could ask. For example, asking someone if they have a boyfriend or girlfriend the first time you meet them. That's not really appropriate. If you see someone who looks pregnant and you ask, oh, when are you due? That's always dangerous. Things like that. So
that was one of mine. When is the baby due?
Edit that one out so you can get to that. But yeah, asking overly personal questions is something that you should not do when you're meeting someone for the first time. As you get to know someone, you get to know more about them, and it becomes safer to ask more personal questions and also to share more personal information about yourself. So you shouldn't, for example, in addition to asking such questions, you shouldn't be volunteering very personal information about yourself just after you've met someone.
That's true. Yeah, if you share too much personal information the first time you meet someone, that can also be a little bit sudden, a little bit surprising to the person listening. So that's a really good point. Like, don't just share all this information about your life. It sounds way too familiar, way too fast.
Oversharing.
Oversharing, definitely. So don't do that the first time. But yeah, when is the baby due? Boyfriend or girlfriend? How old are you? Depending on where you are too. Some people might be a little bit sensitive about like jobs. It kind of depends on the place. I've encountered that a couple times. People don't want to clearly say what they do.
That's true.
Going off of what you said, to add a couple more personal items, don't ask about religion or sexuality the first time you meet someone, because these are two usually very sensitive topics for people. So if you want to, continue a relationship with someone and get to know them better, maybe you can ask this sort of thing in the future. But in general, the first time you meet someone, it's not a good idea to say, what religion are you? Or what is your sexual preference? That kind of question is far too personal for the first time you meet anyone. So that's a pretty good one not to ask anybody. Yeah.
A similar topic. My next thing to avoid talking about with people that you've just met is money. And this can differ culturally. That's one reason I wanted to include this, is because in some cultures, in some parts of the world, it's very acceptable to ask and talk about money, talk about your financial situation or how much money you have or how much money you make, and ask people about that. But generally in the English-speaking world, that is considered a taboo. You shouldn't ask about money because it's rude. You shouldn't talk about how much money you have or you make because it It sounds like you're bragging, and it can sound very rude. I actually remember I used to live in China, and when I lived in China, when I first moved there, I would meet people and they would ask me, oh, how much money do you make? And this was the second or third question
Really?
of meeting a new person. And the first few times, it really shocked me. I thought it was very strange. But then I learned, oh, that's just that's a more typical question in this culture. But I still was a bit uncomfortable answering it. So I wasn't very definite. I wouldn't say exactly how much money.
But on the other hand, would the people who were asking you that question, did they tell you how much money they made?
Not always, no. No.
I see. So maybe it was a curiosity question?
I think it was a curiosity question.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting. So I think that's a really important point because, again, people are very sensitive about their incomes, especially in relation to the other people you're speaking to. But on the other hand, too, if you want to talk generally about like money or prices of an item, like maybe, I don't know, the price of gasoline or like housing prices have gone up recently in the country where you live in, that's fine. Like the general topic of the economy of money is fine to talk about, but don't talk about people's salary, don't talk about your bonus or the great new house you just bought. That kind of thing can be really, really sensitive for discussion. All right, so I think you have one more tip, Davey.
I do. I have
What's your
one more
last tip?
Similar to one that you gave, you mentioned not talking about religion or sexuality. And I have politics or religion. And I was actually thinking of a movie quote when I thought of this. I remembered a movie quote, something along the lines of, never talk about politics or religion because you don't know who you're going to offend. And now I think that these are very worthwhile and important topics to discuss. We should be able to talk about politics and religion with each other, with our friends, our family, and people that we know. But it's not a good idea to bring up these topics the first time you meet someone because you don't want to form a judgment of someone else or have someone form a judgment of you based on what you think about politics or religion. And so once you get to know someone, you want your relationship with someone to be based on an interpersonal connection. And once you've made a good connection, you have a good relationship with someone, then it's a safer time, a safer relationship to talk about things like politics, religion, sexuality, and so on, without worrying about someone changing their opinion of you or your opinion being changed of someone else.
Right, exactly. And that can be a really quick way, too, to maybe make someone feel defensive. If you ask, for example, well, what do you think of this political situation? It can be a little bit of a problem because, number one, that person might not be interested in politics, so you might make them feel nervous. And two, they might be concerned that they're going to offend you or you're not going to agree with them. In general, it just creates too much tension for a first conversation or maybe even a second conversation. I don't know. So it's better to avoid. I completely agree. Establish that connection first. It's much better. Okay, I'm out of tips. I think, are you out of tips too?
I'm out of tips.
Okay, great. So those are a few things that you should definitely avoid the first time that you're speaking with someone. If there's anything that you have tried to use in a conversation and maybe it didn't go well, or if you have other tips for something that you feel in your culture would be inappropriate to ask, please leave a comment and let us know about it.
10 phrases tourists should never use. Number 1, that's disgusting. Disgusting is a very harsh term to describe something that doesn't look good or it's not attractive and you don't want to get near it. It's disgusting. It's a very rude thing to say because you might be saying that about something someone else likes. Number 2, my country is better. To say your country is better is a very rude thing to say when you're a guest in a new place, especially because if you're a tourist, you probably don't know all that much about this new country. So how could you really say one country is better than the other? Number 3, I'd rather be back home. If you'd rather be back home, that means you don't want to be here anymore. And if that's the case, why are you traveling at all? Part of the joy of traveling is getting away from home and experiencing new things. So to say I'd rather be back home, why are you traveling at all? Number 4, shut up. Funny story, when I was growing up, my mom used to say that shut up is a bad word, so we used to get in trouble for saying it. Shut up is a very rude way to tell someone to be quiet. Don't use it. It's a bad way to say it. Number 5, I'm not very interested in your culture. To say that you're not interested in someone's culture probably means that you're not looking hard enough, because every culture has something interesting about it, whether it's the language, the history, the fashion, it doesn't matter what it is. There's always going to be something interesting about someone's culture. Number 6, I don't like meeting new people. To say you don't like meeting new people means that you're going to miss out on a very big part of traveling, and that is getting to know people, getting to hear their stories, what it's actually like to live in that country. So to say, I don't like meeting new people, you're losing out. Number 7, let's just eat at McDonald's. This is something that a lot of Americans are probably guilty of when traveling. They're going to see a McDonald's because McDonald's are everywhere in the world these days, and they're going to think, it's easy. My favorite part of traveling is trying new cuisine in different countries. And if you're just going to say, let's eat at McDonald's, that means you're going to be missing out on trying local cuisine and local delicacies, and you're not broadening your horizons. And you never know, your favorite new food might just be waiting undiscovered for you, and instead you went to McDonald's to have a chicken sandwich. Number 8, boring. Boring is a very impolite way to say that something is not interesting. And you don't really want to use it when you're traveling because it's kind of rude. Number 9, this tastes awful. To say something tastes awful is saying that it tastes bad, it tastes terrible, you don't want to eat it anymore. And it's incredibly rude. You don't want to say this, especially if the person you're talking to is the one who made the food for you. In English, we have this phrase, don't yuck someone's yum. And that means don't say yuck to something that someone else might say yum, or that's delicious. So you don't want to insult a food that someone else likes because it's very rude. It's insulting, especially if the person you're saying that to made the food for you. So don't use this phrase. Number 10, I'm going to spend the day in the hotel. To say you're going to spend an entire day at the hotel means you're missing out on exploring the place that you've paid to go and see. Why don't you get out there and try new food and meet new people, take pictures, climb skyscrapers, climb mountains, go hiking. Do everything you can possibly do to take advantage of being in a new place, because I guarantee it'll be one of the best experiences you have.